Hi guys, welcome to another Exploration Saturday. My name is Sarah, and today we have a program called Waiting for Warmer Weather. Because spring is right around the corner. I know it might not feel like it. This past week has been pretty cold, but we are 1 month away from the official start of spring. The first day of spring falls on March 20th this year. So we're looking very forward to it because it's been kind of a rough winter. And today we thought we'd talk about a few of the things the captains were looking forward to in the spring as well. They were just as excited for the weather to warm up as we are today. And because spring is right around the corner, that means a lot of our early spring flowers are going to be beginning to bloom too. They're called ephemeral flowers, which means they're very early in the season and they're short lasting, those ephemeral flowers. And so you don't see them all summer long, you see them just in the springtime. So it's a good time to start now looking out for those flowers as things begin to melt, and then you can collect them. And the really fun thing to do with your collected flowers is to press them. You press them between books, they dry out, and then something you can do with those pressed, dried flowers, the petals, the leaves, is to make a bookmark and use that for reading and use it at school. And so I'll show you how to make one of these. They're really quick. You probably have all the supplies you need at home already and ready to go. So with Lewis and Clark, they were just as excited for spring as we are. Their first winter, they were in St. Louis. It was pretty cold. Then it even got colder when they wintered in North Dakota. And in North Dakota, they really needed spring to come to thaw out the Missouri River. They wrote about how they saw these huge cakes of ice start to float downstream as the weather began to get warmer. And they were really excited because they knew they were about halfway through their expedition. And in North Dakota, they packed up the keelboat with letters to go home, with their journal notes, with specimens from plants and animals they had collected all year. They packed that on the keelboat. They were going to send that back to St. Louis, and they were going to continue onwards to the Pacific Ocean, which they did. Eventually, they made it to the Pacific Ocean, where they had another winter, not as cold as North Dakota, but still pretty cold, pretty rainy out there on the Pacific coast. And again, they're ready to go home in the springtime because now they have completed their mission. They're ready to go home. They've made it to the Pacific Ocean. They've learned everything they could. And now they just need it to thaw out again so they can get back over the Rocky Mountains and back home to their family. So first they have to wait for all the snow to melt through the Rocky Mountain Passage. They had a little trouble there. They started a little too early, so they got kind of stuck, but luckily they were able to wait for the passage to clear out. They waited with the Nez Perce tribe. And then after that, it was a quick trip home. It took them 22 months to get to the Pacific Ocean, but only 6 months to make it back home because they were going with the current and they were ready to see their family and friends again. So just like we are today, Lewis and Clark and their group were ready for spring. First, it means better weather. It means they can complete their mission and they're just ready to go. And so, just like spring here in Siouxland or wherever you live, you'll start seeing new buds on the trees, new flowers start to pop up. In our area, you might see a meadow anemone. I hope I said that right. It's a really pretty white flower, about 5 to 6 petals on it. That's one of the first flowers you'll see. A little later in the spring, early summer, you might see a coneflower. If you've ever been to the center, we have a few variety of coneflowers here around our building, and these are very sturdy plants. Rain, sunshine, wind, heat, those pale coneflowers survive a lot, and they're really pretty. Captain Lewis thought that this flower could be used to treat rabies. Not quite true, doctors will disagree, but they were still learning. They're collecting these flowers, writing about them. So you got coneflowers you might see. Another one here in Siouxland that Captain Lewis wrote about was the curly cup gumweed. And it's almost like a dandelion. It's really bright yellow and it's kind of a sticky paste almost if you ever got up close to it to rub it. And so he also described that flower. And of course, with all of his other flowers, all these flowers they were seeing and collecting here in Siouxland, they were pressing them, squishing them down to bring them back home. So this big book I have right here is a press book. And Captain Lewis probably had something like that. He would take these flowers that he would find, say one of these, he would press it between the pages of this big book, this big binder. He would use blotting paper, probably, and it's a little bit different than normal paper. Blotting paper actually kind of collects moisture, and he wanted to get all the moisture out of those flowers so that they would dry and he could preserve them. They would stay good longer until he can get them home to show everyone. So another flower you might see in the spring is a prairie clover. Here's an example of a prairie clover that's been pressed, it's been dried out, and then put on some paper to be visible. You might see some choke cherries in the spring, another plant that was pressed. And another one Lewis wrote about is the horsetail, the field horsetail. One, because he said the horses were very fond of eating this plant, and he also described it as a broom with all those many branches sticking out. So there's a lot of spring, early summer flowers that we're going to see pretty soon, I promise. Good weather is just past the horizon. So look out for those meadow anemones, the cone flowers, the curly cup gumweed. They're all just around the corner. They are coming. And I would recommend when you start seeing them, after asking permission from your parents, if you can collect some. Now, it's always a good reminder, if you don't know what the plant is, you should never touch it and you should definitely never eat it. Because some of these plants can be poisonous to touch and to eat. There's even certain plants that parts of the plant is very poisonous while parts of it is not. So if you don't know what it is, just leave it alone. And if you're collecting anything from maybe someone's garden or someone's yard, always ask permission if you can take a sample, and make sure you don't take the whole plant. Leave a little bit of the plant so it can regrow later. So right now, we just got over with Valentine's Day, so Captain Lewis and Clark sent me some flowers, and so these are some leftover bouquets. And I'm going to use those today because it's still February, and it's just snow outside. I don't have any flowers I can collect, so I have some leftover Valentine bouquets. And what you're going to do after you find some flowers, I recommend grabbing some cardboard. If you have some cardboard boxes, cut it up. And this is where we're going to lay out our flowers, our petals. Grab some books or cement blocks or bricks, whatever you have lying around, and we're going to press it down, and we're going to leave it pressed underneath for about 2 weeks. So I'm going to grab one layer here. I'm going to stand up here. I'm going to grab some flowers here. I like this one. I'm going to carefully lay it face down with the petals spread out. There we go. And then we're going to do this purple. There we go. And you can do leaves that you find outside. Here at the center, we have some really big cottonwood trees that are really pretty, so you can collect different leaves that you find. Go lay those down. I'm going to grab some of these leaves too. And you just go ahead, find some that you really like. Grab another one of these, and you can press them down as a whole, or you can even take one and you can pluck out the petals here. It's going to be a sad looking bouquet pretty soon. And so you can pluck out some of the petals and lay those down. Because with your bookmark, you can take these petals, these leaves, anything you might find outside, and you can make designs with them for your bookmark. So I'm going to lay some of these petals so they can dry out too. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to take my other piece of cardboard. I'm going to lay it right on top. I'm going to have to squish it a little bit. There we go. I'm going to set this over here. I'm going to start grabbing my books over here. If you have some big books, I have some big Lewis and Clark journals that are going to work perfect for this. There we go. I'll grab some more books later, but you're going to want to put as much weight on it as you can, and you're going to let it sit for 2 weeks or till they're pretty dried. I have one set ready to go over here, and so when I peel this off, I have a lot of pressed flowers, so they're really flat like pancakes, and they're ready to go here. Now these could probably sat for another week to dry out, but that's okay. Now for your bookmarks, you have your pressed flowers. All you need is some color paper. You can cut it whatever size you want to, depends how big you want your bookmark. Totally up to you. You'll need some Scotch tape, so that big wide clear tape, some scissors, and then if you want a little tassel for the top of your bookmark, I recommend grabbing some string or ribbon and a hole puncher. And that's really all you need. You have a lot of this stuff probably just lying around your house right now. So go ahead, gather up your supplies. If you want to, you can always decorate the paper too to add extra details to your bookmark. You can add some little zigzags, more flowers, a little picture on the back of your bookmark. I'm just going to do some stripes here. There we go. So I have my color paper. I lay that flat. Then I'm going to look at what I have for my pressed flowers. I see I have some really pretty petals, so I'm going to start laying that out. I like this flower right here. I have this red flower. Looks like it has some tiger stripes on it. I want that to go in the middle. I really like this one that's really fluffy looking. And this one, I'm going to cut right in half really carefully. So with your petals, you can design suns or make different pictures from it. Whatever you can want it to think of. There we go. Oh, I gotta make these face up. There we go. And then I'm just gonna add a few little more petals in there like confetti. And that's all there is to it. So it's totally up to you what you want to design. You know, some of your petals might be a little squished when you lift up the books after a while, but that's okay. But just remember, always ask permission before you pick any flowers or leaves that you might find around the house. It's always good to be careful with that. Oh, and I got one more leaf I'm going to throw on here. All right, now next is the tricky part. You might want to ask for a little help with this. With your Scotch tape, you're going to peel a piece off. I go a little bit longer than my bookmark, so I'll actually tape it onto the table here, right down the middle of my bookmark. And so if you want another person to kind of help you with holding the tape and getting it just the right size. And then very quickly we're going to press down, and then I'm going to kind of squish out any air bubbles. There we go. Grab my scissors. And then I have this on tablecloth, so my tape's going to peel right off from my tablecloth. There we go. And with the ends, I'm just going to fold those over. Now my bookmark is a little bit wider than my tape, so I'm going to take 2 more pieces to tape it along the sides of my bookmark. And that way my flowers are nice and preserved beneath the tape. There we go. And that's all there is to it. And feel free to add more things to your bookmarks. You can always add glitter, sequences, you know, add some more crafting things to it. It's always fun. And then I'm going to fold this side over. I'm going to cut off that extra tape that I didn't need on the ends. So there we go. And that's all there is to it. I need one more piece of tape on here on the other side, which I'll do in just a second. But I also want to add, I think I want it to go that way. I'm going to punch a hole. I'm going to take a hole puncher and poke a hole right here at the top of my bookmark, just so I can add a tassel to it too. And I have some yellow string, which I thought would be a fun sunny spring color. I'll thread that through the hole there. And then all you have to do is double knot it, and you have a tassel for your bookmark too. And so these would be really fun crafts to do, great spring gifts to give to maybe your grandparents or a friend or family member. And they're really quick, really easy, but you just gotta start thinking about what kind of flowers you wanna collect this spring. And after you collect them, go to your local library or someone who maybe is a gardener and learn more about the flower that you have collected. And that's a really fun project to do too. So guys, thanks for tuning in today. Stay warm, spring's right around the corner, and we will see you next time.